If I were to ask you what the number one thing underlying the vast majority of all counseling issues, the vast majority of all mental health issues, what that one thing is, would you know? If you said boundaries, you would be correct. And we are going to look at why you're correct. And we're going to look at the challenges that boundaries hold if we don't implement them properly and implement them when we should. Next on Journey to Healing.
Welcome to Journey to Healing. Do you find yourself discouraged, troubled, in need of healing, but not sure where to turn? John Euler, a licensed professional counselor, is here to help. John has more than 25 years of professional experience helping people deal with the issues that keep them emotionally and spiritually stuck. There is help. There is hope. There is a God who loves you and wants to help you find peace and strength. And John Euler is here to help you find that on this edition of Journey to Healing.
Hello everyone, my name is John Euler. This is Journey to Healing, and I had to laugh because at the opening of the program, I saw a little furry tail. So let you know I am recording from my office, from my home studio. And you know what? A lot of us have pets. So Stanley and who knows, even Sebastian or Mr. Knightley might come join us. They are our two cats. We're dealing with the issue of boundaries. We've been setting the stage for looking at how to implement boundaries when the timing is right and how to do that. We have set the stage for that. You can access past podcasts, which are helping to set the stage. We will be adding a few more in between now and hopefully the next time you see Journey to Healing. We'll add a few more recordings that are in the hopper. We've been setting the stage for ultimately looking at how to deal with the issues in our lives that keep things stirred up. That usually has to do with people. We're looking at the overall umbrella category of grief and loss. You cannot heal the past typically until things settle down. That's why it's so important if you go to counseling, if you are in counseling, to begin to look at your current relationships in the here and now to make sure they are okay, meaning to make sure that they are adding positive things to your life and helping to facilitate you being able to calm down and not be stressed, quite frankly. So before we begin, I do want to answer a question. We had a question submitted by a viewer that's connected to TECN. The question essentially was this, because I was highlighting, and we'll pick up a little bit, about what are the characteristics of selfish people, or what I've been calling pigs, borrowing that term from what Jesus said about selfish people and about what we should or shouldn't do, or the extent to which we should or shouldn't be around really selfish people. And he said in Matthew 7, verse 6, "Do not cast your pearls before swine." So I was making the case by going through a list. Again, what are the indicators of a truly selfish person? And somebody asked the question, well, I'm going to summarize. Is every kind of negative interaction, so to speak, is that always bad? I'm interpreting that as he was asking, what about joking, sarcasm? What I would say is, it really just depends. So is it always selfish to joke around? Not necessarily, but the question is, what's the nature of it? If two people don't mind it, that's fine. That also can be kind of a cultural thing. I come out of a family where that was pretty, that was ever present. But then I also started to kind of understand that in my family, it actually probably went a little bit deeper. So you started to have little digs in the middle of the joking back and forth. So I would answer the question really by drawing two principles out of the New Testament These are not overtly religious, but they're good to think about. One is out of Ephesians 5, verse 4, in the New Living Translation, it says, don't get into obscene stories or foolish talk and coarse jokes. These are not for you. Instead, let there be thankfulness to God. So I'll let you decide, the way you're interacting with whoever you have in mind. Is it starting to degenerate? Is the bar being lowered? That's probably a very good principle. Psalm 19:14 says, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be pleasing to you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Now, somebody might say, wait a second, I thought you weren't going to get religious. It's really not. That's just spiritual, and it's very real. So I leave that up to the listener or the viewer, although here are some questions to ponder. So if you find yourself in a family or in a relationship where they're sort of elbow needling or rubbing people sort of the wrong way, and jest. So here's some questions to find out whether or not that's wise, whether or not to continue to do that, or whether or not it's crossing some lines. So the question is, as I find them, how would the Lord talk to that person? That's for starters. Meaning, could I see the Lord doing that? We might say, well, come on, the Lord is the Lord, but we're just people. Okay, how about this? Why is it that is the way I relate to the other person? Maybe that's just how we've always done it. You watch college buddies get back together, and they may kind of do that kind of thing. But the question is, do I know how to relate any other way? Or is it always kind of sarcastic a little bit? Is it always kind of sharp? Do I poke fun? How long has it been that way that I've related or interacted with that other person in that manner? And do I have other modes of doing so? And here's a good question. Is it really a substitute for going deeper? Meaning, I'd like to actually have a deeper relationship with the person, but I'm settling for this superficial kind of back and forth kind of thing. And here's an important one. Is my joking at the expense of the other person? They may be smiling about it on the outside, but in their heart of hearts, do they really like it? Well, just because we've always done it that way, right? Maybe the person really doesn't like it. Does it build them up or tear them down? Does it encourage or discourage? And that's a key piece to remember. I'm either pouring courage into someone, or I am taking courage out. I'm discouraging them. So what do I want to be known as? Now, some people may say, oh, you're taking the fun out of it. I would challenge you. If that has made up the bulk of your interaction with people, maybe you have lost the art of how to connect. And so that's how you connect. But the question is, why is that the only way to connect? So a couple other questions. If someone didn't know, would they know by my interactions, like the disciples were known, that we've been with Jesus? So would they know? And is it making the most of every opportunity? Colossians 4:5 and Ephesians 5:16. So I will leave that up to you. You kind of discern your own interactions and what level you want. But for me, I decided to kind of let that go and have kind of a different type of interaction with people. And it changed things. There was a little bit of grieving, but at the same time, I also discovered that some of the people that I was interacting with, might even be some family members, that we didn't have anything else in common. And so we were substituting proximity for intimacy, and it was inevitably at somebody else's expense. We're actually going to talk a little bit about that. So as we're looking at the issue of boundaries, we're going to transition now, but to set the stage again, why is it important to have boundaries? Because if I don't have boundaries, then I cannot discern friend from foe. I cannot discern people that are okay from people that actually do not intend me the best or do not intend the best for me. So we have to be able to understand or discern the nature of selfish people. Again, the New Testament calls them pigs. It's not a pejorative term. It's actually a descriptive term, especially for the audience. Remember, these were Jews. So if you mention that somebody had pigs, they would really stand up and take note. So if I have somebody in my life that I should not, then using the term pig will hopefully get our attention. So I must understand, in order to really appreciate the need to implement boundaries, I have to understand the nature of selfish people. I have to understand the ability of selfish people. And we've looked at this in past podcasts, that in order to implement boundaries, I have to be able to recognize that the other person knows what they're doing, is capable of choosing, and they're choosing to be this way. It doesn't matter. A person's not responsible for what they were given. So you may have come from a family that's how they acted. You may have had a mother Gothel. We've looked at the movie Tangled a number of times. You may have had someone hurtful in your life, but the question is, what are you going to do with it? And the bar is still the same. So just as you wouldn't cut yourself any slack for being hurtful, we cannot cut anybody else slack. That's different than grace. Grace is there for people who do not intend to continue to be selfish. But truth is there for people that continue to be selfish and will not change. Okay, what else is needed for implementing boundaries? We must understand the mandate we have to keep selfish people corralled, using that idea of a pig. So we have to keep them away from us. And we'll, again, describe the kind of boundaries we're talking about. We must understand the consequences of not corralling selfish pigs, not corralling them off. If we cut them slack, we give them room to roam, and it's not going to be a pretty picture. Jesus said, do not cast your pearls before swine. Why? They'll take for granted everything you're giving, because you're a steward of your time, effort, energy, resources, and if you don't value them, nobody else is going to, and a selfish pig certainly won't. And then that would be bad enough, but they'll add insult to injury. They will then turn on you. They will actually inflict pain. Jesus told you, told me, told us, do not interact with these people. So we have to have discernment. So we must understand the consequences of not corralling them off, and we must understand the impact on others. What happens when we don't corral selfish pigs off? When we don't protect others, especially our kids? It requires us to discern. Proverbs chapter 26, 27, 28. I recommend reading it. It's 3,000 years old, written by the wisest man in the world at the time. He tells us, Solomon does, what we should or should not be doing with fools. A pig and a fool are identical. Okay? And we must understand what prevents us from doing the right thing when it comes to corralling or having boundaries with selfish people. We looked at that last time. What is it that prevents us? The primary thing is fear. And we went into that. We looked at that. So when we're talking about selfish people, again, what do we mean? We're going to kind of take another little running start at it just to make sure we're really clear so that we know why we're implementing boundaries. Okay, so a selfish person is best understood and discerned by their actions and the degrees of hurtfulness of their actions or what comes out of their mouth. Really, we're going to let them define themselves. So until someone opens their mouth or until someone starts to act, we don't know if they're selfish. But forget the old adage, talk is cheap. So forget what the person says. You watch their actions. Okay? It's their actions that we have to assess, not their words, because their words will string us along, because they're not interested in changing anything, and they're getting something from us. Okay, that's what a pig does. Such as when they give us a crumb, so they know how to string somebody along, so they'll give you a crumb of love or hope to hang on to, especially when they sense that you're starting to either get tired of this or you're starting to catch on. You do not have a budding relationship with a pig. You simply have someone who is playing charades and stringing you along for their advantage. You know you're dealing with more than just an average selfish person, but there's a good question for you. Is average selfishness something we should ever tolerate in ourselves or someone else? Should we ever excuse away average selfishness? I don't read that anywhere in Scripture. We are to spur one another on to love and good works. We are never to lower the bar when it comes to character growth. And so if I allow somebody to be selfish in my midst, then I'm not doing anybody any good, and I'm giving them the message that it's okay. When is that ever okay? To make it okay to be selfish? We're not. Okay, you know you're dealing with more than just a selfish person if they play upon your ethics and kindness, and they are masters at that. A genuinely selfish person, a professional grade selfish person, has gotten to a point where they have overridden their conscience. It just doesn't bother them anymore. The psychological term for that is they've moved beyond sociopathy into psychopathy. There's a white-collar psychopath, not just the impulsive, bloody psychopath that we all think of. I'm certified in the Hare Psychopathy Checklist. I'm forensically certified. Robert Hare came out to the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections, and I'm forensically certified in that. Two examples of a white-collar psychopath would be Bill Clinton and Bernie Madoff. Bernie Madoff of the NASDAQ, who made off with everybody's money. Robert Hare said if he hadn't studied psychopaths in prison, which he actually didn't go into prison, he would have gone to Wall Street. So they are all around us. Now, they'll say there aren't many. I say there are a lot of them. You want to find out the next time you're at the holiday table, at your Thanksgiving table or Christmas. This is true for many, many people. How's it going? Do you enjoy getting around those people, or do they make sport of you at your expense? And do they tend to enjoy drawing emotional blood? And if you put up boundaries, how do they respond? If they back off, they may just be a sociopath. That's sales, quite frankly. But if they start to posture and move in for a fight, so to speak, see, a psychopath, deep down inside, what he'll say is this: it's game on. That's very unique. And some of us have encountered people like that. They'll burn it to the ground and feel satisfied as long as they have the last word, last laugh, and last say. So when you have somebody at a professional grade level of selfishness, you cannot tolerate them. Okay, so you have to be able to discern, because the more profoundly selfish they are, the more normal they look. Because they've dispensed with their conscience, now they can methodically begin to use your ethics and your morals against you. They know that you won't go certain places in your discussions. You won't lie, yet they can lie without any guilt. So they have no problem as they're talking with you, coming up with whoppers, huge lies, just to put you on your heels, to get you off guard. They're not constrained by anything. So we have to understand that they will take our morals and use them against us. And they'll take us for a fool. They'll lie about us, and they'll lie straight to us. They'll smear our reputation. They'll slander. They do that easily. And by the way, the Greek word for slander is diabolos, the word devil. We are no more like Satan than when we are killing somebody's reputation. That is bloodless murder. Churches are filled with those, by the way. They will humiliate you with ease. They'll put you down, make you feel stupid, say you are dumb or stupid, and treat you with contempt. Or they will also act in sexually deviant ways. I'm going to add this here. If somebody is acting sexually deviant, you have every right to question whether or not they have a conscience. Sexual deviance has to do with sexually using someone or pressuring someone or doing something that you're not interested in, so they're pressuring you. Or they still will pressure you if you feel uncomfortable about it, and they will do things that are demeaning, degrading, and hurtful. So if you have somebody like that in your life, you need to put boundaries up, because you're probably dealing with someone who is, well, you're definitely dealing with someone who is on the slippery slope downward. You just don't know how far down they are. So that's why we need to be able to implement boundaries. Again, more about selfish people. Selfish people are competent, knowing the difference between right and wrong. Again, in order to implement boundaries, you have to feel comfortable in knowing that, okay, they really know, so that you have rebar in your spine, so that as you begin to speak truth, they're going to give pushback. So you have to be rooted and grounded in truth, and part of that is knowing that they know. There's no doubt that they don't know. And if in doubt, you're going to speak the truth. Okay? Selfish people simply choose to ignore, negate, override, and silence their conscience. Selfish people will work to ensure that another person will ignore, negate, override, and silence their intuition. That is super important. The selfish person overrides their conscience, so there's nothing left to stop them. Then what's the only thing left to stop them from crossing your boundaries, from taking advantage of you, from stealing, from transgressing? So if they aren't going to stop themselves, what's the only thing left that will stop them? It has to be you. Well, the smarter they are, the less overt they're going to be. You need to have your intuition. Okay? Your intuition is the flip side of your conscience. Conscience will keep me on your side of the fence, will keep me on my side of the fence. Intuition will enable me to keep you on your side of the fence. Okay, so ideally, each of us have a conscience, and therefore we don't presume, we don't trespass. But if one or the other stops valuing their conscience because they stop valuing the other person, then what's the only thing left to stop them? It has to be your intuition. Every selfish person, every cult leader, every sociopath, narcissist, psychopath, it's best to view that on a continuum, by the way. The one thing they will do is they will become masters. If they want to keep being able to take advantage of people, they will perfect the art of causing the other person to doubt themselves. Look at what Mother Gothel did in the movie Tangled. We saw that. She was a master, as far as that mother, she was a master at causing Rapunzel to second guess herself. She became the consummate cult leader. Selfish people will work to ensure that, again, that you silence your intuition. Selfish people are capable. Again, we're trying to make sure that you feel confident in knowing that it's time to set boundaries. So they are capable, they are intentional. Selfish people are selective. They're able to turn it on and off when they deem it to be in their best interest. That's how you can dispel any doubt. Have you seen them be able to suddenly turn on a dime? If they're being mean towards you and somebody walks in or they get a phone call, suddenly they can turn it on? Meaning they turn off being mean to you and they act like Mr. and Mrs. Personable? Then it's purposeful. You know they can change if they want to. Selfish people will string you along. They will use you for all you're worth and never give it a second thought, but will try to make you think it's not what it looks like. Again, they're causing you to doubt your intuition. Your intuition is the thing that enables you to test reality. If you wait to have enough proof that this person is transgressing against you, stealing from you emotionally, tangibly, whatever, your bank account, your love account, everything, you're going to be taken to the cleaners long before you figure it out. It is not noble to be a sucker. The book of Proverbs talks about that. We have to be able to have discernment. A wise person is a discerning person. That's what's happened in a lot of churches with this seeker-friendly idea, that we dumb everything down and we just embrace everybody. Really? Well, that means we're embracing wolves. Okay, selfish people are calculating. They plan ahead of time to ensure they're able to make an impact and leave an impression so you'll never forget. And that's usually not a good one. Selfish people are hypocritical. They make allowances for themselves to say and do whatever they want and whatever they need to say, but they don't permit it for others. Selfish people never say they're sorry. And that's a key point. Do you have somebody in your life that you've never heard them genuinely apologize? That's a pig. Let me repeat it. If you've never heard a certain person apologize genuinely, how much more information do you need to tell you that's a pig? Especially if they're educated. Are they reasonably intelligent? Do other people think that they're nice and wonderful? Then they know what's appropriate. They're just withholding. Can you imagine going through your entire life never apologizing to someone and knowing that you've hurt them? You are simply a pig if you do that, and therefore Jesus says decent people should not be around you. Selfish people make excuses for why they are selfish, why they're offensive and hurtful as they are, and they never require of themselves to be any different. So they just keep making allowance for themselves. They never feel badly because they don't have a conscience. Selfish people give themselves permission to let it fly out of their mouths. Anything's fair game. Oh, they'll tell you why they have to. They'll never apologize, and they won't change. Why? Because they don't feel badly about it. Selfish people are happy to have someone come up behind them and make excuses for the way they are, so they never have to apologize. And we talked about being a super-duper pooper scooper, like in donkey basketball. Remember, somebody is making excuses. Do not make excuses for a pig. You blur reality and you facilitate wrong. You facilitate sin, quite frankly. Selfish people cut themselves slack for their selfishness while never cutting anyone else slack for their faults. So the selfish person being selfish, the other person, inevitably, they just have human error. And they treat it like it's willfulness. Big difference. Selfish people justify why they never give appropriate compliments. Selfish people do not feel obligated to say thank you. Selfish people feel justified in not doing what is right, just, or fair. And selfish people benefit from things the way they are. That's why if you wait for them to change, you're going to be waiting for the cows to come home. And other animals to come home. They'll invite other pigs, you know that. So they benefit from the way things are, from ensuring they maintain a one-up, one-down relationship where they are the oppressor. Remember the scales of justice? We did a podcast on that as far as discerning the extent to which someone is hurtful. You no longer have an equitable relationship. You have a one-up, one-down where the person thinks more of themselves and now they are disrespecting the other person. And the one-up person, the selfish person, is taking advantage of. They are dumping on the other person. They become an oppressor. This is the oppressed. This person is taking his or her responsibility to do what is right and just and fair and dumping it on this person. They're taking their knapsacks. Remember, the stuff they're not supposed to give away, and they're dumping it. So you end up having someone with two knapsacks and somebody with no knapsack. Okay, everybody has to own their own stuff, no more and no less. This is a recipe for disaster. This is a dysfunctional relationship. This is a sinful relationship. This is going to hurt everybody except for this person. That's why this person's never going to change. This person's going to have to make a change. This person is going to have to start speaking the truth in love, spurring one another on to love and good works, iron sharpening iron. Okay? So the selfish person, the one-up person, is benefiting from how things are. Selfish people benefit from people not knowing what a dog or a pig or a fool are, and from believing that people morph into a pig, inadvertently, unconsciously, and unknowingly. That's what they want other people to think. Hence, they need to be tolerated and given grace. We are not to give grace to selfishness. We give truth to selfishness. If you give grace to selfishness, you're giving pearls to a swine and you are emboldening them to continue to grow in their hurtfulness. You become an enabler or a rescuer, and now the pain of others is on your hands. you become a co-conspirator of this. And you can look at the 3 things that prevent us from seeing a pig. Previous podcast for that. And selfish people can only continue riding the selfish gravy train. So they're riding this thing out, where they are permitted to be the emotional black hole that uses others, benefits at the expense of others, and grows in sadistic satisfaction and self-entitlement at watching others bow to and cater to their whims. When decent people confuse having discernment for being judgmental, you are not judgmental when you're being discernment. Thus, the decent person, the good person, they give up their voice, they give up their preference, their hopes, their dreams, their goals, their futures, their lives, and their pearls for the sake of a dog, a pig, a fool, and an oppressor. And thus, they end up being poor stewards. We are never called to do that. If we do that, we pay the price, and so do others. So, if you're convinced that you have one of those in your life, what do? We're going to implement boundaries. How do you do that? We're going to look at that next. On the other side of the break, we'll be right back on the next side of the break for Journey to Healing.
Are you or someone you know a survivor of abuse and wondering where to turn for trustworthy help and insight into the effects of such abuse? Ever wish you had access to a resource that could help you continue your progress in healing? SurvivorSupport.net is that resource. Developed by John Euler, a seasoned therapist with years of experience working with sexual abuse survivors, SurvivorSupport.net is a one-of-a-kind resource to help you understand the impact of abuse and to help you understand the nature of those who harmed you in order to help you gain clarity and continue healing. If you are interested in speaking with John Euler about your situation or in having John conduct a consultation or a training for your church or organization, SurvivorSupport.net serves as a convenient method of contacting him. Our program, Journey to Healing, is made possible through the generous donations of viewers like you. There are many opportunities and needs that Survivor Support is attempting to meet, and your monthly support or one-time gift would be extremely helpful as we seek to meet those needs and opportunities. Simply visit SurvivorSupport.net and you will see the link to donate on the homepage. We thank you.